The WagonR was never a car that was bought because of its looks or because it was a driver's delight. In fact, it was bought because of its practicality and its versatility, and of course that badge on the nose that made lakhs of Indians buy this car. 22 lakh of them to be precise. Now that's a big number, and this is a big car for Maruti. Well, they're looking to make it bigger, they're looking to make it better, they're looking to build on its strengths, but not only that, they're looking to add flair. Have they done that? That's what we got to find out. The new WagonR has grown 13 millimeters longer, 125 millimeters wider, and has a wheelbase identical to the Ignis. While it's improved in size, it's still lighter than its predecessor, owing to the fact that it's based on Maruti's new hardtech platform. It gives it better crash test results, improved fuel economy, and performance. It also looks radically different, and although the tall boy is still there, instead of sharp angular lines, there are more rounded edges. The proportions are better too, with its wider stance, stronger nose, and bits of flair like the flashy headlights, blackened areas of the C-pillar, and tall vertical tail lamps. It looks much more modern. It's not a design that will wow anyone, but it does speak of its purpose. On the interior, it's completely all new, looks far more modern, and I really like the look of it. In fact, the dashboard has a lot of layers and different sections to it. It's two-tone. Of course, you have this central console with something that's mandatory nowadays in any level of car, the touchscreen. The gear levers integrated into the central console, and it comes with the Smart Play app, which you can have on your phone. Let's take a closer look at that. Once you have the Smart Play Studio app on your phone, you can use a variety of functions, including navigation. The internet radio gives you real-time weather and multiple music stations and news too. It's called AHA. The app can give you vehicle information like mileage details and alerts in case the door is open. Rear seat passengers can also use it as a remote to operate the available functions, and up to 3 phones can be connected at any time to operate different functions. You feel the increase in space as well when you're on the inside. In fact, you don't sit shoulder to shoulder with the passenger anymore, so the width definitely feels a lot more. There's a lots of little bits that add flair, like the singular big speedometer with the tachometer set in like a Venn diagram. And of course, there are lots of cubby holes and places for storage, so practicality it still has. Now, when you carry your friends or family at the back of the WagonR, they're going to feel happier too, because there's more space back here. In fact, leg room is a lot more. 3 passengers are going to be more comfortable side by side because the width of the car is better. And of course, headroom was never a problem with this tall boy design. The seats are comfortable, but the underthigh support is a little short. Now moving to the rear, for luggage there is more room, with a wider, deeper boot that can store a couple of trolley bags easily. And the rear seats fold in a 60-40 split to open up extra room. Also, when you want to get a move on, you really don't have to mash your foot to the floor. Even a gentle dab brings up a downshift. Well, this is a car that's predominantly going to be driven around the city, so we thought we'd drive around Udaipur and find out what it really feels like. On the new WagonR, you can choose either the 68 HP 1-litre 3-cylinder petrol or the 83 HP 1.2-litre 4-cylinder petrol. We chose the manual variant of the 1.2-litre first. This engine is really peppy and punchy. Put your foot down and overtakes just come easily. You can nip in and out of traffic gaps like a breeze. I mean, it's got enough power to actually put a smile on your face. It feels quick. Now, while the engine is powerful and punchy and nice, you can also be a really lazy driver. You can amble around in a higher gear, lower speeds. You don't have to work the gears too much, but even if you have to do, the clutch is light and easy, so is the gearbox. The steering is light. So this car is very easy on the driver, even in the city in traffic conditions. However, the steering is really not the most responsive, and when you have to make quick changes of directions, it feels a little inert. Now, what feels better is the ride quality. It feels less choppy, more settled than before, and at low speeds, the passengers much better insulated to the bumps and potholes. Larger bumps can be ridden over without the car being tossed around, and the suspension also works a bit more silently than before. Even cabin insulation is marginally better. However, because of the light build, a fair amount of road and suspension noise filters in. Having dealt with the city traffic, it was time to head out on more open roads to see how well the WagonR does at higher speeds. Well, now that I'm out of the city and out on the highway, I realize that this gets up to the 100 mark in a breeze. So yes, as far as performance goes, it does really well. Stability, it has improved. I mean, its wider track now makes it sit much better on the road. But at the end of the day, it still is a tall car, and when you make quick maneuvers or you're going around the corners, you do feel a little bit of that roll still. And the steering that's light and easy in the city just doesn't inspire much confidence out on the highway. Now don't get me wrong, this is way better than before, and straight line stability is good. It's just that on uneven surfaces and changes of direction at higher speeds, it isn't as good as we'd like. It's just much better as a city car. Soon enough, we had hit the point to change over cars. Okay, so it's time for me to drive the AMT now, and there's nothing quite like an auto to help cut through the crazy stop-start kind of traffic that we have almost every day on our office runs. And this AMT does the job actually quite well. When you start off, you do feel that sort of pause between gears, especially between first and second. But progressively, it smoothens out. However, when you want to get a quick move on, you don't really have to smash your foot to the throttle. Just gentle dabs bring up a downshift, and that makes overtakes really easy. The smoothness of the AMT has improved, and yes, it does make driving really easy. And if you still want the feeling of a manual, well, this one works just like one on manual mode, with the shifts being smooth and fast. The new WagonR has a lot to offer. It's fairly well priced too, with the base 1 litre LXI version priced at a competitive 4.19 lakh. Though the top-end 1.2 ZXI automatic is a pricey 5.69 lakh. I've driven both versions of the car from the morning, first the manual, then the AMT, but in the 1.2 litre variant because we didn't have the 1 litre. However, sure, we'll get our hands on it soon and tell you more about it. WagonR is really the Swiss Army knife of hatchbacks, isn't it, for its practicality, and you can't just beat it. And Maruti have built on that. You can't compare this to the old car. It's brand new and it's much better in every single way. It's more spacious, it's got better performance, nicer interiors, better looking car, bigger boot, amongst a lot of other things. We asked ourselves in the beginning, does it have a little bit more of flair? Yes, most definitely in the way that it looks. You get smarter features and apps on the interior, and there's that 1.2 litre engine that adds that required zing. Well, this has been a car that's been popular because it appeals to people's heads, and I think it's going to remain so.
Now the Jaguar F-Pace is an SUV that we've really liked ever since we first drove it way back in 2016. We like the way it looks, we like the way it rides and handles, but most of all, we like that lovely 3 litre V6 diesel the car was launched with. However, that car was also really expensive, and once local assembly began, they dropped that engine. And we were left with a 2 litre diesel engine, which, while okay, was a bit lacking in the pace department for a car called F-Pace, if you know what I mean. Now, however, there is this new 250 horsepower 2 litre petrol engine, and I'm going to drive it today to see if it can fill the void left by that wonderful V6 diesel engine. You should know at the start that, engine aside, this 25T petrol is identical to the 20D 4-cylinder diesel in spec. But then there's the price. At 63.17 lakh rupees ex-showroom, it's actually 40,000 rupees cheaper. Both are available in the same prestige trim, and that gets you quite a lot of equipment, including goodies like a digital instrument cluster, adaptive LED headlamps, a panoramic sunroof, selectable LED ambient lighting, a 10-inch touchscreen, 380-watt Meridian Hi-Fi audio, lane keeping assist, and 4-zone climate control. The back seat is surprisingly spacious for what seems like a low-slung SUV, but the seat itself is a tad on the firm side. Things I'm not a fan of: the powered seat adjustment is quite limited, a powered tailgate would have been a nice feature inclusion, the ambient interior lighting is not very well executed in places, and some plastics could have been better, but that's about it. So, a petrol engine in the Jaguar F-Pace. Well, it's a familiar petrol engine because we first saw it in the Range Rover Velar, and then it's been introduced into the Jaguar XE and the Jaguar XF. It's the 2-litre Ingenium turbocharged petrol engine, which in this car makes 250 horsepower and 365 Newton meters of torque. Now, for a change, I'm going to start by telling you what I'm not such a fan of with this engine, and let's start with refinement. When you first hit the start button and fire it up, it does make quite a boomy noise, but that settles down soon enough. Then once you get moving, it does remain quite quiet, but still I'd say it isn't the quietest engine of this type. Another slight annoyance with this powertrain is that the 8-speed automatic gearbox can fumble a bit at low speeds. When you're getting off from a standstill, or even when you put your foot down a little bit firmer at lower speeds, it can jerk and give you a bit of head nod, which is a bit frustrating when you're trying to make smooth progress. However, if you're light with the throttle, it isn't so bad at all, and once you get this car into its stride, performance is rather smooth. And frankly, things only get better from there. This motor packs in a lot of performance, and it's all available from very low down in the rev range. Put your foot down and yes, there's a second before the gearbox does its thing, but once it does, you just fly forward. It isn't the widest of power bands, and power does taper off well before you reach the red line, but that initial hit and the mid-range are really strong enough to keep you sailing on a nice, strong wave of acceleration. Things improve drastically when you put the car into dynamic mode and the gearbox into sport mode. There we go. Responses are a lot quicker now, and the car feels on edge. The other advantage of putting it into sport and dynamic mode is that you get to hear the sound a lot more. Listen to this. That refinement I spoke of earlier, well, once you let it pass the 3000 RPM mark, that sound comes good. It actually is really rather pleasant to listen to. It makes a nice throaty growl, and that makes you want to push this car a little bit harder. This petrol engine feels far better suited to the F-Pace than the 20D diesel ever did. And at a claimed 7 seconds to 100 kph, it's a whole 2 seconds quicker too. Now, one thing we've always loved about the Jaguar F-Pace is the way that it handles. For such a big SUV, it is incredibly agile. It's just a really well-calibrated chassis, solid suspension, and a lovely steering that work together really well to make this car really fun to drive. Yes, the ride is a little on the firm side and you will get moved around a bit over smaller, sharper bumps, but it rarely feels uncomfortable. In just over 3 years, the F-Pace has gone from pricey to slightly unexciting to being one of the most enticing SUVs in and around its price segment. This holds particularly true if you enjoy driving, and then there's the fact that it's rather stunning to behold. And yes, this petrol engine is the perfect antidote for those who want performance that lives up to the looks and the chassis. A great replacement for the V6 diesel then. The best part is that it retains the aggressive pricing of the 20D, and though some things about the F-Pace are not perfect, you do get quite a lot for your money. While India waits for the next-gen versions of the Mercedes-Benz GLE and BMW X5 to arrive, this new engine could be the perfect reason for people to revisit a stylish, fun-to-drive British luxury SUV that they might have passed on earlier.
right at the start, let's get one thing straight. Everything the gentleman can do behind the wheel, the ladies can do just as well. And looking at the growing number of women enthusiasts in India, a question popped up. Why not have a pro driving school for women, where they can truly sharpen up their driving skills?
The fact that you finally have a all women's event where you don't have to go to a unisex event and get dissed out like when you see women, it's quite gratifying, and you come here with a lot more confidence of wanting to do better and find a great avenue to learn.
Most people don't know where to start. I think that's the problem, and when I saw something like this flag up on my Twitter newsfeed, I was really excited because I think it's important to get the technique right, and what you're doing here is beautiful.
To make it happen, Autocar India joined hands with Ford to stage the She Drives Pro Driving School. And we even got Asia Pacific Rally champion Gaurav Gill to introduce women to advanced driving techniques on a custom-built autocross track in Mumbai. The formula to teach the ladies pro driving techniques in a limited amount of time was simple. Rally ace Gill takes the ladies around the track for a sighting lap, followed by an all-out hot lap.
Intent of coming here was to meet Gaurav first. Second, I wanted to know how freestyle actually is like, because my husband is really behind me to buy this car.
We didn't know what to expect when we came in, and the initial first drive that we had, sudden braking and the drifting, it was fantastic.
The women's drive, it's crazy. This is the first time ever I've tried something like this.
After which, they got into the completely stock freestyle and headed out for a timed lap. They were then taken to a slalom course where essential tips such as tackling corners on dirt, handbrake turns, and compensating for understeer were taught to the ladies by professional rally drivers. The participants then went back to the autocross circuit for another timed lap to see how much the tips helped improve their lap time.
So I improved it by 16 seconds. My target was 20 seconds, but I improved by 16 seconds.
I have improved my timing to almost 7 seconds, and that definitely gives me a better experience.
The lap time improved dramatically, so I was lesser by 20-25 seconds.
After the little bit of prep talk and instructions from the instructor, once I moved back to zone 1, my timing improved drastically.
With plenty of enthusiasm, women of all ages, with a valid driving license of course, took to the track. Each of them looked like they were having a great time learning how to drive on the limit.
This type of driving, woo! My heart was in my mouth in the morning when we trained on zone 2. That was too much. First time, my lifetime experience.
I was very apprehensive with how can you learn something in 10 minutes when you've not done it before. But honestly, after coming here, after seeing the whole thing and doing it, it's amazing. It's way more than I really expected.
This was a good opportunity for me to come here and learn something different.
Age clearly wasn't a factor.
I'm 68 years old and I have been driving since I was 18 years. They taught me about the handbrake and turn was my first experience, and it was really nice.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. It was very thrilling, especially because you don't get to drive like this anywhere in the city.
Speaking to the participants and instructors, it was obvious that the skills the women picked up are not limited to an autocross track.
What I learned in this was enter in slow and exit fast. It's exactly opposite of what I normally do.
What I learned was I've been driving for last so many years, but I never knew at that speed controlling the car with your handbrake was something very interesting. I loved that part.
I learned a lot, and I learned that driving on the road and driving on gravel over here and on loose disc, it's really difficult.
The first edition of the She Drives Pro Driving School was quite a success, with a number of participants stating that they felt the training in advanced driving techniques could prove vital even in daily driving scenarios.
I think I was quicker on the reflexes and the confidence was much more. Yes, definitely.
I just wanted to come and have some fun. Driving is always related to men, so I think this is a really good beginning that Autocar has done. And yeah, I'd love to come back and learn some more.